Well, hello and welcome to the Pop Podcast. I am excited that you decided to join us this morning, this evening, this afternoon, whenever you're watching. For us, this morning, so that provides context, I guess. Thank you for tuning in. Week after week, we're definitely, again, I want to highlight that we're seeing a community that's like forming around watching the Pop Podcast each week and interacting. And so I encourage that. If you feel like someone needs to hear this conversation, send it to them. Like this, share it. Those things like that help out the mission of this getting to who needs to hear it. Today with me, I have David Cooke, which he's been on here a couple times. So thanks for being here.
Thank you for inviting me back.
Yes.
It's good to know I didn't mess it up too bad.
Absolutely.
All right.
I think you're our most repeated guest at this point.
Oh, wow.
So that should be a high honor that is carried.
Yes.
Well, each one, we start with a drink. And this drink was bought uniquely for you, not stolen out of your mini fridge in your office.
Not at all.
So we have a Celsius because you're so trendy.
So cool.
You're so trendy. You're so keeping up with the youngsters that you would have Celsius. That's the big.
Is this a youngster drink?
Oh yeah, it's a big trend right now for the gym bros and the 100%.
Well, as you can tell, I'm a gym bro too.
Yeah,
right.
We know.
Yeah,
we know. Yeah, it's the steroids that make you bald, right? Well, you're gonna have to rate the drink that was out of your mini fridge at the end.
Okay.
So just be prepared for that.
I'm thankful that you gave me something, to do.
Yes. Sweet. Okay, so right now, Cold Springs Church, we're here in Northern California.
Are we doing product placement? So if I
try and get sponsored. I mean, technically it's product for free, but I don't know if they pay attention to us. So yeah.
Celsius.
Beautiful. So right now, Cold Springs Church here in Northern California, we're in a generation to generation campaign. Mm-hmm. And the inspiration of that is, I love how you said it this last Sunday, of like in opportunity and crisis, you're either ready or you're not. You can't ask it to come back at a more convenient time. Yep. So we see that there's an opportunity to reach out to the next generation, to resource them, to raise them up, and then for them to rise up. I guess that would technically be me. Yeah. You talked about Gen Z. I'm the spearhead. I've never said that here on the podcast before, that I'm the spearhead of Gen Z, but yeah, I am. I'm right at that tip.
Yep.
So for us to rise up, so what are, you and I talked a little bit, what are some stories or experiences that you've had around generational impact of raising, resourcing, and rising up?
Yeah. Well, one of the things just to observe that we are seeing, even in our context, but in a larger context, that this is a generation that is rising up, that God is doing something quite extraordinary in them, amongst them. I talked about yesterday the Asbury revival. One of the things I didn't talk about within that is that this is like the third or fourth revival at Asbury College. And one of my seminary professors, Dr. Robert Coleman, was in seminary during the revival in the 1960s, and that shaped his ministry. And he was a contemporary and personal friend of Billy Graham.
Wow!
And so that was Master Plan of Evangelism is one of his famous books, well-known books, but just a phenomenal guy. So I've been around actually the fruit of that in my own personal life of seeing that. So that was really cool. As I was thinking about our conversation today, there was a story that immediately came to my mind because it was actually a wounding story. And it's our wounding stories that seem to sit most deeply with us. So it came out of my time. We lived in Chicago for 9 years. That's where I went to seminary at West Trinity Evangelical Divinity School in Deerfield, Illinois, which was a northern suburb outside of Chicago. And then my wife and I lived in Waukegan, which is a little bit further north in this community that was very diverse. It's basically a third black, third white, third Hispanic. And so we had I've always had a heart for cross-cultural, cross-racial engagement. I was working in an inner-city ministry in Chicago during that time. And so we got involved with a church plant that was being planted by African-American leader, black leader, great guy, and who is extraordinarily disciplined. I think about him and his ministry and what he did. And planting a church, he just sort of showed up, him and his wife, and they started this church at the school that was literally 5 minutes at the most walk from our house.
Oh, cool.
So that's where we started going to church, and I was excited. I was a young seminarian, full of ideas, full of calling, and the sense of seeking and wanting to make an impact. And so I'd engaged in relationship with some of the other guys in the church, and had asked some guys about meeting together in some discipleship relationships. And so there was a point where the pastor took me out to breakfast, and he really the breakfast was about calling me to the carpet, and I still remember the words he used. Is that he said, "You are unsubmissive and not in tune with the vision."
Wow.
And it crushed my soul. I mean, it really did. I mean, I came back. I mean, I was sullen. I was probably in tears. I remember telling my wife Pam about that, and it was the beginning and the end of the relationship with that church. Because
so what led him to say that? Was it warranted? Was it not? As you look back,
that's part of, I guess, a larger story of God working through that story in my life. It left a mark. It left that was a scarring experience, and because there was a lack of, clearly there was not him trusting me in that. And then that also then turned around of like, well, can I trust you?
Yeah.
Of which, we're frail human beings in this whole thing. And so there's a long-term perspective, there's a short-term perspective. So the short-term perspective is that in that moment, in that time, and for a long time, it was this sense of like, oh man, you just, I was just trying to help. I was just trying to contribute. I was just trying to be a part of what God was doing in this body of believers. And we developed friendships within that church with other, couples, and Pam and I were a young couple. We didn't have any kids yet at that point. And so we ended up leaving that church, but very wounded, very in that process. So you asked a really good question. Why did he do that? And part of perspective, longer term perspective, is that one is not understanding the cross-cultural things that I was a part of that, particularly within the Black church. It is a high respect, high honor culture. And so that role of the pastor in sort of traditional Black church structure is one of great honor and great respect, of which I get, and I affirm that. So some of my initiative, what I would have seen as initiative, that was interpreted differently because I wasn't really respecting or honoring his position, talking with him and going through him. Yeah. And I can see that now from this perspective of a number of factors there of just being ignorant within that. And then, it's interesting that it was not until I came here, and shortly after I was here, I was a part of a pastoral mentoring group, a local gathering of pastors here in the community, and I was sharing this experience because it was extraordinarily wounding. It was a defining moment in my ministry, and this pastor said, "Well, were you?" And it made me stop and think, and this would have been about 4 years probably removed from that experience, 5 years. So some time. And I realized, well, maybe I was more than I was willing to admit.
Yeah.
I don't know that I was unsubmissive in a rebellious way.
Yeah.
And I don't know that I wouldn't say that I was not in tune with the vision in trying to create another vision.
Yeah.
But I don't think I was wise.
Yeah.
I don't think I was intentional about how I was going about it in a way that honored and respected him in the way that I could have or should have.
Yeah.
So I got convicted by the Holy Spirit in the midst. I was like, God dang it. What's up with that? It's like, it's all his fault. It's not my fault. I was just trying to help. I was just trying to, come along. But it really did set, it has shaped my ministry in regards to this, is that I wish the conversation had been different.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? I wish the conversation had been more of seeking to understand me, teach me, develop me, but I got dressed down.
Yeah.
And it was painful. It was soul wounding from a leader. And the interesting thing is like, I'm never going to do that to anybody. And I've hurt people in leadership. And so, so that's a foundational story. When we talk about generation to generation, I was, that I had that painful experience, but I do have a positive experience.
Okay.
Do you want me to share that story?
Yes.
Okay. So another side of that. So we moved from Chicago to Paradise, and I was there in Paradise for 2 years. And as associate pastor, youth pastor of the small Baptist church, First Baptist Church of Paradise, and had the most wonderful pastor, Denny Clemenson, who he had been a lifer youth pastor, and this was his first senior pastorate. And First Baptist Church of Paradise was this older congregation, and I've never been shepherded pastored better than Denny. And so my job was to come in and do youth ministry, and I really didn't have a call to youth ministry. And the church was small, the youth ministry was small, and it was sort of it was an interesting group of people.
Yeah.
Of within that, and I didn't really know what I was doing. Denny was the expert, type of thing. So I knew pretty quickly that really wasn't the focus of my calling, because I really have a very strong calling experience, was within that segment.
Yeah.
And so I'm looking for a way to, where do I fit? And so what I say is that what I did, my success story at First Baptist Church of Paradise, is I killed the youth group.
Yeah.
So there was a lot of dysfunction. There was a guy who tried to get me fired. He wanted my job. I mean, it was just some real interesting, one of my, my main helpers. It was just an interesting experience. And so the youth group, ended up shrinking, not growing. So I was like, man, I'm called into the lead pastor, role. That's really where my heart, my passion is. And we were part of a denominational entity at that point, which was in this big process of turning things around. And so they were being very intentional about bringing in pastoral leader candidates for churches that had a track record of growth. And so, and I'm like, this is, I belong in a different, slot, be on the bus, be in the right seat on the bus, right? I was on the bus. I just wasn't in the right seat. But I want another seat. And the only people who are qualified for that seat are people who have a track record that you have grown something.
Yeah.
And my track record is I
Shrinking
killed something. But there was a guy who was the head of the denominational entity at that point, Dr. Conrad Lowe, who saw something in me. And he gave me a chance. Even though I didn't match up to what the qualifications were to even have a chance to get into the race, he saw something. So he was a senior leader who opened a door and he gave me an opportunity. And that was all I was wanting. That was all I was looking for. And so that's the positive side of things, here's somebody I think I can see something in that could be helpful to the kingdom of God. And he gave me the opportunity.
So then that opportunity led to Cold Springs.
Yeah.
At the time, First Baptist of Placerville, reaching out and going.
Yeah. I was the ninth guy.
I was going to say, you weren't the first candidate. They were down the chain quite a bit.
They were down the chain quite a bit.
So they decided to go with the youth pastor that killed the youth.
Yeah, that's right. What I say is that it was a match made in heaven because I was desperate and they were desperate, right? And we're like, okay, we can get along. We're gonna go for it here.
And so you arrived here in June of 1998.
June 15th. Yeah.
June 15th of 1998.
Yeah, that's when I started. Yeah.
Wow. 27 years.
Yeah. So first lead pastorate, hadn't done it before. People gave me a chance, and here I am. 27 plus years later. Yeah. In my 28th year, we're still standing. But it really did give me an understanding of, hey, give people a chance. Really another part of that story is my dad. My dad was an engineer, he's a chemical engineer. He worked in the cement industry, and he was a plant manager of a cement production plant in Eastern Oregon. Am I boring you?
No.
Okay.
No.
You're yawning.
I have little kids, and I'm tired. I just yawn. Okay. Trying to do it away from the camera so no one notices.
Don't yawn out there.
Trying to do it away. Yawning. So that no one notices and you call it out.
If I'm boring, just ask a question to get another place.
I'm captured. My body is betraying me.
So my dad was a plant manager of this cement production plant. So they took the raw materials, rock, and all this stuff, ground it up and burned it up, and then made bags of cement that you then mix with water and then you make concrete. So he started a summer program for college students to be able to work at the cement plant in order to be able to afford college, to pay for college. So we were a part of that. My two sisters and I all got to be a part of that. There's a bunch of college students did. But it was sort of that same idea of giving people a chance. Now, we were sweeping concrete, sweeping cement dust, and, doing stuff like that. But also within that, you could see what people's work ethic was, and you could see what it wasn't, and what these sort of developmental things, that it was about giving somebody a chance. And that's been a formative thing within my life as my dad and his model of that.
Yeah. So how old were you when you first became pastor here?
I think that I was 34.
Okay. So then in that time where you're transported in as a leader, what were some key people that invested in you during that big step in leadership.
Yeah.
And what was that like? Was it positive, negative?
Yeah. Well, all of the board at
Yeah.
that point, both men and women who were a part of that calling process. There's a couple people that stick out in my mind. Dave Lawrence. I've got Dave Lawrence's signature on my initial, contract or employment agreement. So if you don't like things, you can blame Dave.
Perfect.
So go after him.
I'll give him a call. Yeah.
Hank Canclini was this total visionary, and his little statement, he said it, told me the story multiple times, is that when they were talking about it, when he says, "I think we have a diamond in the rough here. I think we have a diamond in the rough." Huh. So, I don't know how rough we were, but apparently we were somewhat
in
rough.
the rough.
And,
you were in the rough at least. Yeah.
So Hank Canclini was a real influence and of a lot of saying yes to things and giving opportunity. There was a great group of people within our initial board. Was called a diaconate, and it was sort of committee heads of different groups, and they gave opportunity. They gave chance. They like my first board meeting. One of the things they said was, "I want to have a prayer conference." My very first request was, I want us to be rooted in prayer as a church, and I'd like to have a prayer conference. And so started June 15th, and I think that was the Monday. That was first board meeting that day, and then that fall we had prayer conference. Lord, teach us to pray, which really sort of set a foundation and hopefully a DNA for us over the years. And then it's just been people through the years. Steve Cockrell, who's on the board and a part of that. Tony Campagna, Nick Campagna's dad, was key within that. Nick and Sharon Campagna, they started our first life group.
Wow.
Yeah, I remember they came to me and said, "Hey, we want to start a small group." I'm like, "That's great. Let's do that. How do you do that?" And then they started. So our small group system started with Tony and Sharon starting a small group.
I never knew that.
Ken Croker has been a key leader within my life that has really helped and been a part of things.
So for people that don't know these people, like what's the strain of what they, as they fed into you or raised you up or resource you, what was the strain of that was the impact?
Yeah. Old people with vision. Sorry, no, you're not old. What was the strain within that? I think that the strain was just a willingness to go beyond. We've never done it that way before.
Yeah.
I mean, that's one of the biggest hindrances, right?
Yeah.
Of moving forward or somebody, because if you think about a young leader, generation, if you think about young leaders, you go back to Joel, right? Where it talks about, visions and dreams, the difference between visions and dreams, and, that there's going to be these visions that young people have and dreams that old people have. And it's almost like, visions are what can happen in the future, and dreams are the old folks are going, yeah, I remember when, type of thing. So it's the ability to say, well, I'm gonna vision with you, and let's see where that goes.
Yeah.
So a lot of permission giving would be within that. Trust. Appropriate kicks in the
rear end,
patootie, when necessary.
The woodshed. Yep.
Yeah. But with wisdom, such that it wasn't wounding, but it was uplifting. Which
you would have been very, like, I don't want to say sensitive to, but you would have been very aware of. Yeah. One that was just because of your scarring experience with that pastor in Chicago.
Yeah. A key part of it, though, here's the thread. The thread is that we had relationship, and it was beyond oh, you're the pastor, we're the people type
Yeah.
of thing. There was
Yeah.
a relationship, and when Larry Osborne is one of my distant mentors. He's down in Vista, California, North Coast Church. And he did a church turnaround. It was really sort of the father of the multi-site movement in a lot of ways, multi-service type of approach. But he wrote a book that is still out there. It's really key about how to basically get along as a board and what that structure looks like. And one of the things he talked about is that have your board meetings in people's homes with a meal, because it's a lot harder to yell at each other and to be mean to each other when you're sitting around somebody's dinner table.
Yeah.
And it's such a simple concept, but it is such a powerful concept.
Yeah.
Is that when you are fellowshipping with people around a common goal or vision or dream or hope or issue or challenge, and you're doing it over dinner,
Yeah.
or over dessert and coffee in somebody's front room, it creates a whole different environment.
Yeah.
That is about relationship. It's about that we are partners, we are friends in this movement together to bring about the purposes of God. If you sit around a conference table, which is where we started, it creates a whole different dynamic. It's about a business, about an organization. So that was something that was key.
Yeah. So as just trying to think of young people seeking, how much when you were young, whether you were in seminary, a teenager, or a 34-year-old pastor just getting started, how much did you seek out mentors or advice or leadership or investment or resources or raising up? Do you wish you did more? Do you think you hit it spot on? We all know you're perfect, so we can start from there and then kind of go out.
Yeah. I'm a pretty assertive personality.
Yeah.
Which has its positives and negatives. So I'm not afraid of asking for help. So I'll name drop here. When I was in Paradise, I met Dr. John Jackson, who's the president of William Jessup University at that point, because he was a friend of Denny's. And he had come up there for, I think, spoken for something. And I saw him and I'm like, this is a really smart dude. I need to stay close to him. So he has been a mentor for me for 28 years.
Wow.
And I've sought to stay close to that relationship and he's been key in my life and Pam's life, my wife's life, in some really tragic times. Him and his wife, interestingly, his wife is Pam as well. John and Pam have ministered to us, but he's been a constant source of sort of checking in and wisdom and try to do that. So that's been a long-term thread. But because I'm a strong personality, a strong leader, I've also always oftentimes been put into that role and leadership. So, so there's been a lot of peer, relationships, being around. And so I've been a mentoring pastor for other pastors, led mentoring groups for 15 years plus. I'm, a coach. I coach leaders. I coach pastors. So that's a bit of my story of connecting with high-level leaders. And so I always learn from them. That's always good to be around people who are smarter and better than you. But because of some of the things I do, I have those options. I think one of the things that I want to make sure, and I want to be careful within our conversation, my context is ministry world, you're in the ministry world. But I really want to, also be careful to not say, hey, this is just about people who are ministry. And if you're not,
Yeah.
this isn't about you. No, this is about every one of us, of seeing the people around us and helping to raise them up and give them opportunity, give them a chance. Because too oftentimes we can, focus in the vocational ministry type of thing. But if you looked at the statistics of how many billions of Christians there are in the world today and how many are vocational, there's a whole lot more who are not.
Yes.
Than
Absolutely.
who are.
Yep.
And even so, I do a lot of international work, and a lot of those people who are high capacity, high impact leaders internationally are bivocational. It's not, they're working in the marketplace as well, working in the ministry place.
Yeah.
So this isn't about a vocational thing. This is about who you are and us seeing the people around us and raising them up and giving them opportunity.
Yeah. Absolutely. Well, and I think that standard of like what you said of like, even if you're the mentor leader for a group or whatever, you can learn something from everyone. We can all take a cue from that. That's a human thing, not a pastor thing, or vice versa. I see you pulling out the Bible, so
I'm pulling out the Bible.
Assuming
Always
you've
a good
got
place to
some
go.
Holy Spirit inspiration.
I do. As I was thinking about this, so one of the passages in 1 Timothy 4. So let me 1 Timothy 4. That's 6. It's not 4. In 1 Timothy 4. Paul is really encouraging and challenging Timothy. And so, within the context of that, so Paul has chosen Timothy to be the person who is going to follow him, is going to replace him in his leadership. So in verse 11, 1 Timothy 2:4-11, he says, command that you and teach these things. Let no one despise you for your youth. It's an interesting word, despise there.
Yeah.
Let no one despise you for your youth, but set the believers an example in speech, in conduct, in love, in faith, in purity. Until I come, devote yourself to the public reading of Scripture, to exhortation, to teaching. Do not neglect the gift you have, which was given you by prophecy when the council of elders laid their hands on you. Practice these things, immerse yourself in them so that all may see your progress. Keep a close watch on yourself and on the teaching. Persist in this, for by doing so, you will save both yourself and your hearers. So one of the things that you see within that is that you see multiple people who are engaged in this young leader's life.
Yeah.
So you have Timothy, and you have Paul. Obviously, Paul here is talking to him, but he has this calling that is going on. Do not neglect the gift you have, which was given you by prophecy when the council of elders laid their hands on you.
Yeah.
So there was a community that was around him that saw him of what was going on there, and then when you go to 2 Timothy chapter 1, I thank God whom I serve, as did my ancestors, with a clear conscience, as I remember you constantly in my prayers night and day. As I remember your tears, I long to see you that I may be filled with joy. I am reminded of your sincere faith, a faith that dwelt first in your grandmother Lois and your mother Eunice, and now I'm sure dwells in you as well. So one thing you observe there is that you don't hear about dad. You hear about mom and grandma.
Yep.
So these faithful women who raised up a next generation leader.
Yeah.
And I was sort of curious as I was looking, I was like, okay, what's going on here in this story, and how old are people in this? And what scholars believe, because of the language used about him being young, Timothy being young, is that they think that Timothy was between 15 and 20. 22 maybe. So he was a teenager, right? When he's getting this call. Paul is likely in his 40s. So somewhere in his 40s. Timothy is in his early, late teens, early 20s. So that's an interesting little
Yeah.
data point that is going on there. You think about the disciples who were called Jesus, who Jesus called. Also, scholars hold that they were in their teens, 20s. Peter was married, so he was probably one of the older ones, 25 to 30.
Yeah.
John appears to be one of the younger ones, and so he is, probably in his teens, mid-teens. Mark, who wrote one of the Gospels, he they think he shows up in the story where in the Gospels, actually in Mark's Gospel, about this young man who is a part of, I think, the betrayal or something. Somebody grabbed his cloak and he ran away naked. Sort of an interesting story. This young guy.
Yeah.
But so you have within the foundation of Christianity that it is a movement that was led by young people.
Yeah.
Mary was a teenager when she was pregnant and gave birth to Jesus. Esther was a teenager when she was pulled aside and put into the harem and eventually became Queen Esther.
Yeah.
For such a time as this. So, and these are common people. These are just people, right? Who God chooses to say, "Hey, be a part of my kingdom work," and He's still doing that today.
Absolutely, yeah. I was just in one of my classes. The professor talked about how in the Old Testament there seems to be a switch after Noah of God looking for a especially righteous person to then looking to restore a person. So there's nothing specifically special about Abraham, but it's just someone normal that he grabs, and there's a restoration process of building them up. And then it's not Abraham's righteousness that is counted to him. It's his faith that is counted to him as righteousness. And so that feels like that's from that moment after Noah, that's the story. Like the 15-year-old is going to write Revelations in the future when he's much older and going to write the Gospel of John. And that's going to be, we're going to just grab another person. That there's nothing specifically special about them. But that it's just God restoring humanity through humanity.
Yeah.
And so then for young people, like the narrative can be, well, when I'm 40, when I'm 30, then I'm a real adult, and then I can really, and it always is the next decade. Once you're 30, you're like, once I'm 40, then I'll be stable and I'll be able to make impact. I'll be able to give. I'll be able to do these things. That's a narrative that can build up, either self-imposed or a cultural thing for sure. But then the Bible seems to flip that over and go, it's going to start with the young people that are willing to change.
One of the things that I have observed that is unfortunately is actually a fairly common story. So I was involved with a church planting network for quite a while. Did assessments of people who were wanting to plant churches, and these, a lot of them were in their 20s, early 30s, and it was very common, or too often a common story, is that somebody who was in a role such as yourself, a staff position within a church, who got a sense that they were called to plant a church and sharing that with the senior leader and getting fired.
Wow.
Almost immediately.
Wow.
It was like, okay, then you're out of here.
Then goodbye. Leave.
Right. So if you want, we can talk about, I have some thoughts about that, of what's going on with that. But also back to my original story with my experience in Waukegan was in my international work and working around different cultures, a lot of cultures are honor based and respect based towards older people, towards seniors.
Yeah.
And so there is a cultural context that's much stronger than it is in the U.S., and particularly within white culture, where we just sort of were like, yeah, I can show up and I can do whatever we want. But there is a much greater respect culture, like in Asian culture, within African culture, that you don't sort of step out of line toward your senior leaders. You are responsive versus proactive.
Yeah.
And you always defer to seniors. So that means that they hold the positions and they hold the power. But there's also a mistrust oftentimes of senior leaders towards younger leaders.
Yeah.
Because they're afraid that they're going to take their position or they're going to take some of their power.
Yeah.
And it's an interesting dynamic. So
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of responsibility on those leaders in whatever role that we find ourselves in, whether in the marketplace or in the ministry place, is that we function from a biblical view
of raising up.
Of how we treat other people. And in this whole leadership realm of raising up next generations is that we really have the heart of Jesus within that.
Yeah. So what are your thoughts around pastors that would hear their young buck say, I'm ready to plant a church, which, by the way, we'll have a conversation after. I'm just kidding. And then going, you're fired. Let's do a real-time play out. David,
No, we had that conversation at the Exponential.
We did.
Like, should you go forward? Context: we were at a conference, Exponential conference, and it was about raising up church planters. And they did an altar call for church planting. And I looked over you. And I said, "Should you be going forward?"
And what did I say?
And you said, "No, I've been praying about it. I've been praying about it and asking God, and I have no sense that that's where I'm supposed to be." I said, "Well, if it is, then you need to do that. You need to go forward." Mm-hmm. So, interestingly enough, I have thought about this before because you gave me a little prompt of why senior leaders use power. Because it is an issue of oftentimes what happens is a power dynamic.
Yeah.
And so a younger leader wants power, they want influence. Senior leader doesn't want to hand it, doesn't want to share it, doesn't want to give it, doesn't want to do that. So I think that there are some reasons behind that. So one is that we feel threatened. We can feel threatened in our position. We can feel threatened. Well, what if this young person is better than me, is taller than me? You're sitting on a pillow, aren't you?
I am.
It's like whatever. What if, a young leader is more handsome than me or more beautiful than me? And you are more beautiful than I am.
That's good.
Just so you know. We're all egomaniacs.
Yeah.
I mean, we all have an ego, which is, it's looking at ourselves. And I once heard somebody say ego stands for edging God out. So make it all about me, right? So there's an antidote for each of these things as I thought about them. And the antidote to feeling threatened, when a senior leader feels threatened, is this isn't our ministry. This isn't our church. I mean, Paul, he grounds his authority. He's a great person to look at, right? He grounds his authority in that he has God's direct calling.
Yeah.
So he had this experience with God. It's like, God
He
called me
opens
to
almost
this.
every letter that way. Yeah.
God called me to this.
He taught me. Yeah.
And then he also talks about that it's the Spirit that is empowering him in his life, in his ministry. And then he has Jesus' commission of what he's supposed to do. He's supposed to go to the Gentiles. So he has a strong sense of who he is. And he doesn't have to worry about other people stealing what God has put into his life, because it's God who's put that into his life. And I think for each of us, whether that's, ministry place, marketplace, family place, we should wrestle with, who has God called me to be in this place, in this time? And if once we have that understanding, it should give us so much confidence that it's not about me.
So okay. So this is really cool, because I've just being in youth
There's something
pastor.
you've been wanting to say to me? Is
No,
that
no.
Okay.
Just being in like youth pastor community, I often will walk away from different conversations or talks at some of these gatherings of some of the struggles that youth pastors face, and I walk away encouraged by you being my senior leader, and so you see what you're talking about so much. Of like, yeah, I preached once a year ago, and he's never let me do it again. Even something as simple as that, right? Or I came up with an idea.
To you, by the way.
Yeah, you have.
Every time you give a good sermon, I say,
Yeah.
You're never preaching again.
Yeah, yeah.
Which is also true with my wife, because my wife, she's done some preaching, and occasionally she says that's not her favorite place to be, but she's done it, and people have applauded, and I've said, well, you're never doing that again.
Yeah,
so
that's it.
it's
It's
all about
over.
me.
Yeah. So whether it's on some of those examples, or even just like, hey, I brought an idea for the church, and the senior pastor just like bats it down in front of everyone, just like absolutely not, like no, nothing. I mean, you and I, you've handed off a lot to me. You've handed off a lot of influence and different things like that. So how has that gone for you? Because I think it's easier to be on my end, to be the maybe anticipation or the waiting or the kind of like where of maybe some of the struggles or some of the moments have been.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if you've noticed this about me, but I have opinions.
Yeah.
I have a bit of a personality that's strong and not afraid has an opinion, afraid to say it. So I go back to what's the key? The key is relationship.
Yeah.
We have a relationship.
Yeah.
And that's really important. That's what I've sought to create, a community of leadership where we can have those conversations and talk about things. Just a little bit of a side. So I do this, coaching thing, and I train coaches, and I've done that for over 20 years. I'm a professional coach with the International Coach Federation, and coaching has totally changed my leadership and changed my relationships, because one of the key things about coaching is having the mindset of curiosity, that it's not about me, and it's drawing out the best out of other people. And so that's that skill set and that mindset that I've learned through coaching has really been beneficial in being able to listen for what God is doing in other people, and to be open that, hey, my idea, although it is a brilliant idea, may not be the most brilliant idea.
Yeah.
Or is not the only brilliant idea, that there are other ideas out there. So that's but there's, I think honestly, I would also say I have to intentionally step back. And I've really sought to do that. And I can remember some various things of events or whatever have been planned. And it's like, I wouldn't do that. Or I wouldn't do it that way. But, one of my early, teachers, mentors in the coaching world, he talked about this whole thing is that when you're the thinker or the person you're coaching comes up with an idea, and somebody asks a question and says, well, what if it's a really bad idea? and he said, there's a difference between a foot wound and a head wound. Did I already talk about this in one of our conversations?
I mean,
Okay.
I've heard it
Right.
from you. I don't know
Yeah.
if it's been
So
here.
he says there's
though.
a difference between a foot wound and a head wound. So if somebody shoots themselves in the foot, it's going to hurt.
Yeah.
And they're going to limp. But they're never going to forget that they shot themselves in the foot.
Yeah.
It's not fatal. It's not potentially life-threatening.
Yeah.
If somebody does a head wound, does something that is going to cause that could kill them. That could cause permanent damage.
Yeah.
And if somebody is doing a foot wound, that creates a great follow-up conversation and a learning opportunity.
Totally.
But if somebody is on the pathway of doing a head wound, then you say, "Don't do that. Stop. That's not smart. That's dumb. That's ignorant or whatever." So part of leadership is to allow people to shoot themselves in the foot,
Yeah.
have a conversation to say, well, what did we learn?
Totally.
And never say, I told you so, because that's a power move. But to say, how can I be of help? Do you want some advice on foot wounds? Because I've done some, too.
Yeah.
Do you want? But sometimes you just let that happen.
Yeah.
So, but I think, if there's a relationship and you trust somebody, then oftentimes there's more good things that come out than bad things that come out.
For sure.
Yeah.
Well, and I just reflecting on our relationship, I think there's been more things that I've sought advice of like, hey, what do you think about this? Than if we didn't, right? If there was no relationship, I would probably have more foot wounds because I didn't even come to you and go, hey, what do you think about this?
And we've had a recent, experience of that, of like, hey, this could be a head wound.
Yeah.
Let's talk about this.
Totally.
And we had, long, and intense conversations around it, and some shifts and changes toward, because of that.
Totally.
That would be an example.
For sure.
Because of the relationship, you had the humility to listen, and we had the relationship for me to say, time out, slow down.
Totally. Let's talk this through.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So there's a second thing.
Yeah.
So why leaders use power. So one is that because we feel threatened. The second is that because we feel entitled. The longer you're in a position of authority and power and of recognition, the more people defer, and the more you think people should defer. There's an entitlement that happens within leadership. It is money, sex, and power. Those three things. Those are the three dangers of any leader. Those are Satan's primary ways to take leaders out. And so part of power is entitlement. You see that. You look in the political world, right?
Totally.
You look in business world.
Yeah.
Look in the ministry world. I mean, it's all out there. And it goes to the honor and respect culture idea, right? But there's an antidote to that as well, and that is Philippians 2. Let no one think of themselves more highly than they should. Have this attitude which was in Christ Jesus himself. And I think that anytime that there is a sense of entitlement, then we need to turn to Philippians 2 and we need to read the crucifixion passages. Because if there's anybody who should have been entitled,
it was
the
Jesus.
Son of God.
Yeah. Yeah.
And Jesus gave his life. He laid it all down. He suffered extraordinarily in order to share his grace and love with us. Philippians 2 is just such a key, such a huge passage of scripture for us to meditate on as leaders. So I'll just share a little bit of how I have chosen to think on this. I regularly remind myself that there is no job that is too low or too small for me. So when I walk through the parking lot, I pick up trash. And it's a part of a reminder is that there's nothing that I can say here at Cold Springs Church that's not my job. Because in saying that's not my job, that is putting me above. Now, there are things that it's not my role and not best for me to do.
Yeah.
Because we are a team and gifted us in abilities. But there are times where we all pitch in, we all do things. So when we had, the work day, I was out, doing brush and telling people what to do and where to go and that type of thing. But I'm not too high for that.
Yeah.
So those simple acts are reminders to me is that I've been here 27 plus years, but I still need to lean over and pick up trash.
Yeah.
Because this is my place. This is my family. This is my church. And if I start thinking that, then that's pride.
Yeah. And I mean, how much would that change like a workplace if the CEO thought like that, right? Yeah. I know that there are CEOs that do. Mm-hmm. And how different is that work environment if the leader is on top of it in that way versus someone who is entitled?
And I want to be careful in sharing some of these things just because I don't want people to think, oh, David, he's so humble. I mean, these are very intentional. And pride is one of the things that I'm most afraid of within myself because I know I have such great potential for it. It was the confrontation of my pride that opened the door to my vocational calling to ministry. Yeah. And that happened in Australia. We shared that story before. But another expression of that is that I park the furthest away from the front door on Sunday mornings. Now, part of it is that when I walk through the parking lot is I pray for that space that God would bless us and fill it with people who are seeking him, that we would have an opportunity to minister. But also it is that I'm here one of the earliest, and I'm here one of the latest. I should park the furthest away, and other people should walk the shortest distance. I shouldn't walk the shortest distance. Now, contrast to that, I'll tell this story. It was again in Waukegan. It was a different church than the one I went to, but there was this little church, and there was a parking spot right next to the door, and there was a sign that said, "Pastors parking, don't even think of parking here." I love that. I took a picture of it, but that was before cell phone pictures, and so I don't have that picture anymore. But again, sort of culture of honor, respect type of thing. There are different expressions of that. So my expression though is that I want to intentionally serve others because I'm afraid of my pride. And then, so sharing this, I could become prideful about my pridelessness, right? It's a
dangerous game to talk about it. Yeah.
It's a dangerous place to go. Yeah. So the one more thing I would say why leaders use power is that we're trying to protect something. So I think that's what commonly happens within the young, staff pastor who says, I want to plant a church, and they get fired. Is that somebody feels like, okay, we have to protect our church. We have to protect our people. If it comes out that you're planting a church, people are going to go with you, follow you, and that means there's going to be less people here. There's going to be less money here. There's going to be less resources. And the great Bible story to look at in that is the story of David and Absalom. When Absalom, betrayed David. I mean, David's son, Absalom. Yeah. And it broke David's heart. And David left Jerusalem instead of fighting his son. And he was derided by his leaders to do that. And within that story, though, there's this sense where David says, it's God's kingdom to give or to take. It is not mine to hold on to. And he did that with Saul coming into it. This is the book, The Tale of Three Kings. And if you're a leader, and if you haven't read The Tale of Three Kings by Gene Edwards, then you need to go to Amazon.com right now and download either the audio version or get the physical version, and you should read it every year. because it is one of the best books about submission and leadership and power and authority. And so it goes this whole thing of thinking too highly of myself. So let's go to generation to generation. If I'm holding on and saying this is mine, then I'm not going to let anybody rise up.
Yeah.
But if I say, hey, this is God's, it's his kingdom. I've just been given a stewardship for a period of time, but I can have a stewardship of a legacy beyond me in how I do things now.
Yeah.
Or I can have a legacy of destruction, of which is if I'm not raising up and intentionally giving young leaders opportunity, then it just is my generation, is my time, and nothing else. I would hope that my prayer has always been the best days of Cold Springs Church are long after I leave, not while I'm here. That would make me the happiest. So, greatest impact, the greatest number of people, the greatest vision, the greatest whatever. It's not mine. It's what happens after. That's what my prayer is.
Well, I feel like that's where we got to end it. Next time you come on, I want to talk about why young men are flooding to the church, but young women aren't necessarily.
You have some thoughts on that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Next time. You'll be back on. You'll be back on. That'll be the first question. Because I think we could have a great conversation about that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for being here. And that, I really like the 3 things. I think that's good. I keep telling you, you got to write a book someday.
So now the problem with sharing this is that now you have ammunition in everybody else who's watching this.
Oh, yeah.
And like, hey, David.
Absolutely.
I
What are
see
you trying
this
to
in
protect?
you.
Yeah.
Remember what you said? Seems like you're protecting something here.
Yeah.
Seems like you got a little bit of pride going on. Seems like you're a little entitled. You walked by a piece of trash out in the parking lot. Go back out there and pick it up. So I give you permission to say that. I may not listen to it. But I give you permission to say that.
Perfect.
So,
man.
Yeah.
Well, your Celsius drink here that we stole from your refrigerator.
I think they're great, man. I love them.
So -10 to +10. What are you thinking?
Zero sugar.
The wild berry.
-10 to +10. We did this comparison of your Red Bulls, right? With their 5,000 calorie,
Yeah.
And this has 10 calories.
It does. Yeah.
And,
that's why I usually reach for the sugar-free Red Bull.
and my wife is a scientist, and she accelerates metabolism, essential energy, burns body fat.
Yeah. She's
like, yeah, that's a bunch of garbage. So I'm, you want to know why I drink these? It's because I'm a little on the ADD side.
Yeah.
Maybe a lot on the ADD side. And actually one of the ways that you treat attention deficit disorder is stimulants.
Stimulant, yep.
Because their brain, you think, why are you giving somebody's brain who's already stimulated stimulants? Is it because it helps them actually to focus? So there's an intentional use of this. Is like, I need a little more focus because I'm like, hey, squirrel, hey, look there.
So, I'm the same way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's not about necessarily staying awake. It's about focus. So I like them. 10 out of 10.
Hey, wow.
And, wild berry is actually one of the better, drinks.
It is.
And if you mix it with, sparkling water, it goes longer.
Yeah, man. Yeah. That's great.
I love ice. Ice would be good too.
Yeah.
We don't have an ice maker.
I know.
But one day, maybe,
one day,
we're going to have an ice machine.
Yeah.
Maybe.
At the end of this capital campaign, for sure.
Generation. Yeah.
That's what the next gen needs, an ice maker. It's for sure. Well, thank you so much for being on and having this great conversation. I appreciate you and how you model this in the good ways and the lessons.
Yeah. So, little final statement here is that how young leaders can be raised up is that you can build trusting relationships with senior leaders.
Yeah.
And how senior leaders can raise up young leaders is you can build trusting relationships with young leaders.
Yeah.
It's both sides have a responsibility. And I have chosen to have a bias towards trust, to try to give trust to others. And it's going to be messy because, I mean,
Yeah.
I was messy. We're all messy.
Yeah.
But if there's a relationship of trust, we trust the motives behind some of those messes. And so why I think, we have such a positive relationship is that there is a relationship of authentic trust, is that we've
Yeah.
chosen to be truthful and honest and transparent, both in the goodness and in the struggle. And that's how that's built.
Yeah. And it doesn't get easier.
No.
Like it's still a choice to trust.
Yeah.
Well, if I tell David this, how is he going to react? I'm just going to say it. I trust him.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I was going to add this earlier, and it reminds me, is that I think there's sometimes a culture of like from young people of, man, I wish I was discipled by X, or like I wish this person would disciple me. And I'm like, you have a phone, text them, right? Like most of my mentor relationships at this point are initiated and driven by me setting up meetings. And I don't think that's a bad thing.
Yeah.
Like I should be pursuing it. And it's going to be reciprocated at certain points, but yeah, as young people, we need to be looking for that and searching for that,
Right.
and pursuing that. And sometimes we can get so captured with, well, I want to be discipled by the lead pastor, or in bigger city content, I want to be discipled by the mega church pastor. Like I need to get them. And if I don't get them, then it's not worth being discipled by Hank. And I'm like, you're missing out on so much.
Yeah.
You're missing out on so much.
Yeah. Because every person has capacity,
Exactly.
a limited capacity. But I would hope that a part of our culture that I think it is there, but I would want it to be much richer and much more vibrant, is a culture of mentoring, of investing in each other in multiple generations.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Agreed. Boom.
Boom.
There it is. Thank you
Boom.
for
There it
listening
is.
to
Boom.
the
There it is.
to the
Boom. There it
podcast
is.
and joining us this week. We post every Wednesday, so continue to tune in. I appreciate you tuning in this week, and we'll see you next week. Love you guys. Peace out.
Peace out.